Previously on Keep and Idiot! I was supposed to say that!
Thumbs up for the demo. I really enjoyed it. And my own problem is that I don't get a series out of it.
The design of the hovercraft. Everyone loves a hovercraft, really.
I love stop motion and I love puns. This show was a match made in heaven.
It's a rare occasion where someone else gets to see Joe's spy case. It's almost like letting you in on the secret.
Being strung out in front of the Express, and he does not care if she lives or dies.
Hello there and welcome to Keep and Destroy. This is your host, Adam Luff. This is the Gerry podcast where I interview the fans and ask what 5 would they like to keep and what 5 would they like to destroy. Here we are with Déjà Doom Part 2, starting off with the first choice of what to destroy.
Terrorhawks, and it is my kingdom for a Zeef.
Fuck you!
I will say the premise for this episode was good. It's nice to see different powers that can be used, but this is the introduction of Lord Tempo.
Of course!
It's kind of odd. He's so polite, but he sounds too much like Dracula for an alien.
It's all in the eyes and the voice and the head.
But then it's his ability to move through time. It's very hard to follow, even for me at this stage. It just seems like it's very back and front of how his powers are having an effect. He's gone back and changed it, and then it's like rippling through and taking time to take effect. So it gets a little hard to follow.
That's the problem with time travel. It can cause so many problems in storytelling. Even with great movies like The Terminator, they've got their own paradoxes and whatnot. So I do like Lord Tempo. He is my favourite of Zelda's monsters. Yeah, the Dracula thing, it never occurred to me when I was a kid. I always just thought he looked like a gangster. Just like this strange visual design for this alien gangster. Even though he looks very old, like Zelda, for all we know, he could be an alien rather than a machine, but who knows?
Yeah, some backstory on him would be a lot nicer.
But also, it's interesting that this is the only episode in Terrorhawks where they actually mention Zelda's home planet of Guk.
When they go back and they actually find the king, and he's trying to get his horse and anything to take me away, and I like that they do his old English really well. But then Lord Tempo says, it's a bad idea, we should not be taking him with us. No. He then changes his mind and goes, okay, fine, but be warned, you're going to see some crazy stuff. And I'm like, Lord of Time has just said not to take someone from the past into the future, and then just goes, okay, fine.
And then at the end of the episode, when he says, even I can't alter history, well, you kind of have.
You've created a time paradox. You can't go changing the future like that.
The Zeef is going at high speed, and it's like, why are we going so fast? We are trying to go forward. Why does the Zeef speed affect his ability to time travel?
Oh, no.
That makes no sense. Tempo kills Kate by accident. Back at Terrorhawks, they're crying because Mary's like, Kate's dead. They had a 1090, but the Zeroids are crying. And it's proper. If it had been like a bit of like oil or something, I would definitely fit in better because, you know, I've seen a Cyberman cry, but the Cyberman cried oil. They've been discussing what's happened to the Zeef that are charged at Spacehawk. The only theory we have is that maybe it moved in time through a time portal. But then later on, Kate's come back and things seem to be altering. Einstein just says, we're dealing with a Time Lord. Right, so you didn't think about mentioning that earlier, but suddenly now you know about Time Lords. They trap Kate and Hudson in a time trap, which makes Hudson stop. Hudson can't drive anywhere, so it seems to be it's a time trap that freezes Hudson. It's like, okay, perfectly makes sense. But then the bridge starts collapsing. It's like every second is so many years of the bridge's life. I'm like, so it's a speed up time trap. But how is it freezing Kate and Hudson? But Kate is still talking, but then the bridge is being accelerated. Is he made 2 traps? Is it a trap within a trap?
He shorted out, sir.
Things like that just doesn't make any sense. And then they do go back, and there is the effect because you can see the fact that, you know, the king is going, a Zeef, my kingdom for a Zeef. That alone is just that tiny word change, as we have seen in any other time travel episode, can have massive knock-on effects.
I assume this is the battle that he died on, so maybe he didn't get a chance to actually say the word to other people. He died in 1485, and that is the year that they picked him up from. And as much as I love this episode, it's certainly not the best Lord Tempo episode. I always think Time Warp, he was used a hell of a lot better in that episode. His powers weren't as inconsistent.
If they'd made his powers more consistent, I would definitely be a lot happier with this episode, and it probably would be not on a destroy list. It might lean more towards a keep list.
Much like Traitor, My Kingdom for Azif was the first Terrorhawks episode I ever saw because it was on Volume 5, which was a compilation movie called Flaming Thunderbolts, and it was the first episode on that tape. And ironically, Play It Again SRAM was the very next episode. I do remember when I watched it as a kid, I actually only remember seeing those 2 episodes because the other episodes were Gold and Midnight Blue, but I don't have any recollection of watching those episodes. So maybe even as a kid, I hated Play It Again SRAM and stopped watching it. I don't know. But I do remember when we last talked about Terrorhawks that you liked the banter between Zero and Tiger. And this episode has got some good examples of it. The theory of elasticity and Alfred Albert. What do you think of their interaction in this episode?
I do like it. I think it's a bit comical. Sergeant Major Zero is actually one of my favourite characters. Windsor Davies' voice is just absolutely perfect in it, and he's the main reason I absolutely love it. It's more the fact of a Zeroid getting information wrong, whether that should be classed as a programming issue, but him getting those little bits wrong while in front of Einstein is a bit like, how does he do that? How can he do a theory and get it wrong? I think it's like maybe adding a little too much human stuff onto the Zeroids, because normally they show a little bit like, courage, bravery and stuff like that, but then it's a case of he just bumbles it up so badly.
I think it ties in well with From Here to Infinity, when Einstein says to Hero, I think it was a mistake to allow Zeroids to have human characteristics. So I think they covered themselves on that one.
My Destroy episode is from New Captain Scarlet, and it is Dominion. It just didn't feel like a proper finale, and in terms of the characters felt very forced with their actions.
There's one scene that you talked about the other day that you don't like, so I'm going to ask you to elaborate on it.
Okay.
The scene where Captain Black's in prison and Destiny goes to see him.
Yeah, that's a scene that really irks me, because if Captain Black is a high-level criminal, he's been detained, why is Destiny Angel being allowed to go see him, especially because she's got an emotional attachment to him?
Yeah.
And also, this is another issue I have, which over the course of the series, we see Captain Scarlet and Destiny Angel dancing around each other. Occasionally, there's a kiss on the cheek. Captain Scarlet makes a move, but there's nothing solid. And presuming that these episodes have taken place over several months, surely by now, Scarlet and Destiny will have actually moved forward, and actually, something be something more solid. And Destiny wouldn't be pining over her ex-boyfriend or fiance. It just feels like that scene is a setup for Destiny to burst into tears. Because initially, when Black is talking, he's saying, yeah, it's really me, Destiny, I'm back. And then suddenly he slams a door in her face and goes all cold and says, no, it can never go back to the way things were. This is my main gripe with the episode. It's this forced characterization. Things are happening because they need to happen for the sake of the plot, rather than how the characters normally behave.
In a rare occasion, I'm going to possibly defend New Captain Scarlet, because
oh gosh,
what you were just talking about, Black being very close to Destiny and then suddenly turning cold, and obviously this isn't really what is shown on screen, so I guess it was just an error, but they could have possibly implied that Black is manipulating Destiny because it's hinting that he is still under Mr. On Control, and then he recovers and says, no, keep away from me, I'm still under Mr. On Control, without actually saying it. But maybe with another rewrite, if Phil Ford had done something like that, hinted with little moments like that, I think it could have worked.
The problem, one of the big issues with New Captain Scarlet in general for me, is that it lacks that female touch. You can see where Sylvia Anderson had an impact with Captain Scarlet and the Angels. In the original, the Angels were fully fledged. You knew who they were. They were all distinctive. They all had their moments in the show. Even though I do prefer it over the original, I would take the original Angels over the new Captain Scarlet Angels any day, just because we get to see the characterizations a lot better.
There is a good finale in this as far as they actually do defeat the Mysterons for good. But to then tack on at the very end that Black survived, and because we know that Mysterons can rebuild, and we just have to accept that, he survived just because of reasons.
Yeah, I was never happy with that, and it felt too much of a cop-out.
The fact that the Mysteron city imploded and was completely wiped out, surely their powers would cease to exist. The source has been destroyed, so how can Captain Black survive? Maybe if there was that beacon, like in the Mysterons, the very first episode of the original, maybe that could rebuild the city, but of course we don't know. I'm just speculating.
Because they're trying to do too much in this episode, and they're trying to force too much, it makes the production feel really, really rushed. What we also lose is the character growth that we've seen over the last few episodes, especially with the background characters coming into play. For me, Enigma would have actually been a stronger finale episode because we actually see more of the characters. We get the same sort of setup as well, because we have the big Mistron event, we have the Angels coming in to attack, and then we have the interpersonal exchange between Scarlet and Black. So everything comes to play in that episode. Dominion doesn't give us any of that. It gives us this love triangle from the episodes. This is why I think it'd be more fitting as a mid-season break rather than the finale.
For my destroy choice, I've picked Thunderbirds Are Go. Thunderbirds Are Go was the perfect opportunity to not only showcase an epic rescue, but to also take advantage of the feature-length running time. Maybe introduce new pod vehicles. And instead, what we got is a film that is structurally all over the place, with a plot that barely focuses on the Thunderbird machines and practically reduces the Tracy family to supporting characters.
And the opening scene is Zero X taking forever to assemble itself and fly off. They should have taken inspiration from Sun Probe and have the Zero X launch televised. Then you can cut to the Traces watching it on TV, rather than having them be absent for almost 20 minutes.
Yeah. Not to say that Zero X isn't gorgeous to look at. As usual, the production quality is breathtaking.
Gordon does nothing in either of the movies.
Yeah.
What about me, Father?
Well, it's unlikely that you'll be needed.
Well, you never know, Jeff. Especially since the last time Zero X crashed, they crashed in the sea. So maybe you do need Thunderbird 4. And then, of course, you got the shot of Gordon just watching everyone fly off. Sucks to be Gordon.
Yeah.
There's a big issue when it comes to the timeline. Now, Alan says...
Takeoff is scheduled for tomorrow morning.
Then, later on, when all the Thunderbird vehicles launch, he tells Penelope...
There's a big press conference tomorrow evening. You'll be representing a British magazine.
So after Zero X is taken off. So within 24 hours, Thunderbirds 1, 2, and 3 launch, get to their destinations, tells Penelope what to do. She and Parker get plane tickets, get packed, get to the airport, fly from London to wherever it is in America.
Yeah.
Get the passes cleared, attend the conference, interview everybody. And then have Zero X launch. Basically within 24 hours.
Oh, the lighting in the snooker scene is gorgeous. I love that scene just for the aesthetic of it. Oh, if only that went into a better story. The introduction to Mars, I think, is the first really engaging scene in the movie. The silence, there's a real sense of ominous dread in that scene.
And even though it's not technically accurate, but I do like the fact that Mars is not red. It adds more tension and horror to the scene.
What do you think of the rock snakes?
I quite like them. I don't know why it is. Mars is always the planet for monsters, and the rock snakes are no better. Scott says a really stupid line.
International Rescue calling Zero X. May we offer our congratulations on a superb liftoff. Fortunately, our services were not required, although I can tell you now that a sabotage attempt was made just before liftoff.
So your services were required then? Idiot. It's like, you just contradicted yourself in the same breath, Scott.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to just not talk. When it comes to which movie I prefer, I seem to be doing a tug of war. I used to watch Thunderbird 6 a lot as a kid, and then I actually said this on episode 12. I said that I think I'm going more towards Thunderbirds Are Go, but then when I rewatched it again recently for our discussion, I kind of regretted saying that.
Gerry Anderson's confusion as to why it didn't work. I've actually got a quote.
And I can only think that it was because at that time people weren't used to seeing television productions turned into feature films.
Well, the one that always sticks in my mind is Doctor Who and the Daleks with Peter Cushing, and that was a massive success. Granted, the second one, Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD, wasn't a success, but the point is the first one was a huge success, and you could argue that maybe it's because it's Doctor Who in black and white and it's then Doctor Who in colour. But the problem with that is Thunderbirds, even though it was made in colour, was transmitted in black and white. Maybe they were perhaps resting on their laurels. We're doing such a good job on TV, we'll probably do a great job on film. They just underestimated what feature films would be like.
Yeah, you were right. I think they did perhaps rest on their laurels a little bit. And I do want to end on positive. Parker is fantastic, as usual. My favourite line in the movie is from him.
Just a little bit over to the right, old son.
Thank you very much.
That line made me giggle. That was a
All
good
right.
line.
I also think it's a good shot for perspective when you see the back of Parker looking up and you can see a tiny 0x.
Yeah, I love that shot. Probably my favourite shot in the movie.
Hey, everybody! Here comes fun!
Can't a guy get any peace around here?
And the episode I want to destroy is The Secret Service, A Recall to Service. I will say, having now watched more of The Secret Service, I'm actually a huge fan of it. It actually breaks my heart to actually have to put it on the destroy list again. But there is a glaring issue with this particular episode that I can't forgive, and that is a rip-off pretty much of Captain Scarlet's Point 783. Oh, we've got an automated tank. Hello, Unitron. And we've got the Aqua Tank this time. We've got a sabotage attempt, for said tank. Hello, the Mysterons.
True.
The only thing missing is the fact that the Angels tried to destroy the Unitron. Oh, wait.
Also, they used some footage from the Joe 90 episode Business Holiday of the tank exploding. You could say stock footage has been recalled to service on this as well.
Oh, big time.
Unmanned, unstoppable. That'll knock their eyes out at Tuesday's NATO demonstration.
She certainly will, sir.
I like the character of Mitchell. He's clearly not the villain.
It just feels so unoriginal compared to all his other works. It pains me to say because I do like the Secret Service, but
yeah,
it just felt lazy.
The red herrings on the phone don't really go anywhere, unfortunately, because you've got Professor Graham on the phone saying that Father Unwin needs to be kept out of the way. And then you later have Mitchell, who's clearly not the villain, who's clearly talking to another good guy, saying pretty much the same thing. Got to be honest, the Aqua Tank is not the best of names for a vehicle that barely touched the water.
Yes, I thought that as well.
This might have made the episode stand out a little more and perhaps would have avoided any similarities to Point 783 if it had been underwater scenes. If this was a tank that could ride on the seabed and shooting down submarines or something, at least that would have looked different and it would have been relevant to the name as well.
Yes.
Then it could be someone here, in this room.
I mean, I heard that his code name is the Red Flag, but that probably doesn't mean anything. I don't. He's clearly not the villain.
I think the Secret Service could have benefited from longer episodes. Like you see at the start, Mrs. Appleby talking about Matthew, and she's saying, oh, he's a lazy boy. But we don't really see any exchanges between Mrs. Appleby and Matthew. I want to know more about their interactions, more about their character history.
Perhaps what they could have done, and it would have also given Mrs. Appleby more of a purpose in this show, is if she was part of the team as well. Maybe if Father Unwin and Matthew went off on their adventures and Mrs. Appleby would stay at the vicarage and she would be giving excuses to visitors that needed to see them. I think that could have worked, at least made her a little bit more relevant to the show rather than being someone who's completely in the dark.
Yeah, I thought that a few times too about it, and I just thought, why isn't the bishop brought her in? Because having it out of the loop just doesn't make sense, considering that it's a big security hazard having her around all the secret stuff.
Well, be careful, because if the Secret Service got to 26, they probably would have had a flashback episode. Maybe that would have been it. Mrs. Appleby would have uncovered the secret, and so they start retelling some of their past adventures or something.
I mean, at least we got 13 episodes of it, because it is a great show, but I would have loved to have seen another series.
Oh, yeah. But what I do like is when it was transmitted, it was in the fall of 1969 and the last episode was mid-December. So what I like in this case is the Secret Service ending at the close of the 60s, and supermarination is a very 60s thing because the very first episode of Fall Feather Falls was transmitted in 1960. So I do like the fact that there's this time capsule of the 60s is entirely supermarination. Yeah, there are a couple of live action stuff here and there like Doppelganger and Crossroads to Crime, but it's mostly supermarination. And then when you get to 1970, live action all the way with UFO and the Protectors, etc.
Yeah, that's quite fitting. That is quite fitting.
But on the other hand, even though 26 episodes, it would have crept into the 1970s, but ultimately I would have preferred 26 episodes of the Secret Service. It had the legs to get to 26. Oh, that's a paddler.
I rewatched Point 783. And even some of the shots they did of the Aqua Tank It's not stock footage, but it's almost shot for shot from the Unitron.
The costume designs are pretty much superb at this point. They've come such a long way from the early days of, Supercar, when they would have similar characters, especially when you look at things like the ranking insignias. They've perfected it perfectly by the time they get to the Secret Service. And it's unfortunate when Gerry went back into puppets with Terrorhawks. One of my favorite episodes is First Strike, and there was a general, but his military ranking insignias was just basically a sticker. And it just looks so fake, unfortunately.
What have you done? We'll all be killed.
You will. The chiefs of staff will. I'll be in the safest place on this base. The target building.
I mean, it's not very heroic of Mitchell, but I don't know. No, he's not the villain. Not the red flag.
No.
I always think that Graham's the villain. Mitchell's just dispatching the villain.
Oh, you better believe that's a pattern.
I mean, it's a decent episode, but it is a case of, for the reasons I mentioned, it just, to me, it shouldn't really exist compared to all the other episodes that he's done.
I get you.
And even the ones that are bad, at least there have been unique ideas and everything.
When the Aqua Tank has gone back and destroyed the target building, killing Mitchell, and then you get that sinister music while we're looking at a close-up shot of Graham.
Padre, I know I saw it, but I just can't believe it.
That, to me, that's the villain. The music is emphasizing that the villain has gotten away with it. He's the villain. But I do think we need to have a moment's silence for our fallen hero, Mitchell, the red flag.
Rest in peace, Mitchell.
He was clearly not the villain.
The lack of subtlety.
Okay, I'd like to destroy Lavender Castle in the beginning. My disclaimer is I haven't really watched that many of them. And the reason why I would like to destroy the pilot, it gave me no incentive to continue watching the rest of the episodes. And I tried to, but my interest just waned. That's the steal of death for me.
I'm like that with Torchy. I can't stand Torture the Battery Boy. I got to 6 episodes and thought, hell with this. I'm only watching it if someone picks it. But fortunately, no one's picked it for a while.
Like, I've watched Stingray, Fireball XL5. Those productions are fine. The thing that ties all those other shows together is pretty much how they're produced. In terms of like the values of, I don't know, pacing and sound and design, and all that was gone in Lavender Castle. I mean, even the name Lavender Castle, it's gone already. You know what I mean? What are you going to watch from TV today? I'm thinking of checking out Lavender Castle. It's not going to happen. And like, I sit down, I watch Trapdoor all day. I mean, I watch Dr. Snuggles, Danger Mouse. I watch any of those things. I mean, Dr. Snuggles is a very good example because it's pretty much like Lavender Castle without going to space. And I didn't feel any of that charm in Lavender Castle. It looks like it was there. They seem to be quite elaborately designed, but it's like they're not attractive. You've got the main character, what's his name, Captain Thrice. He's got 3 eyes, he's got an eye in his nose. And it's like, I don't want my main character to have an eye on his nose.
Yeah, it's a bit distracting.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm going to have to watch that for the entire series now. Yeah, with Laika, she's got an interesting design. I usually like a lot of female designs when they do like aliens and stuff. But it's like the voice acting just killed all the characters anyway. And it's not just because of their accents, it's the pacing of the voice as well and the script. So it's like, if you turned off the visual and you're just listening to it as a radio show, Stingray's going to stand up.
True.
That missile, it was armed with a warhead.
But the Lavender Castle is not going to stand up. So the impacts of the lines are lost and you start to lose interest and you just, you get distracted. And I think that's Lavender Castle all the way through. It's like from the very first line, I'm like,
we've got to get to it before Dr. Agon
destroys it the way he destroys everything else.
I don't care. And it's not because of the subject matter, because at the end of the day, they're talking about like slavery. They're talking about destroying like worlds and planets. You even see him like destroy some sort of sun. Okay, it's like pretty much the highest stage you can get, saving the universe. And yeah, I ain't feeling it. I got more excitement out of basically Daddy Pig losing his glasses in Peppa Pig.
Right.
For real.
It's It's so unlike most of Gerry Anderson's stuff. I know he technically didn't create it. It was Rodney Matthews. Gerry just co-created it. But it's so far removed. It feels more like something from Terry Pratchett than it does Gerry Anderson. I mean, I like that when people change their work. So it was nice to go in a different direction. It's like why I like Dick Spanner as well, because that's a drastically different direction as well. But something about this also feels like maybe it's 10 years too late, because it feels so much like one of those 80s fantasy type of things, whether it's Labyrinth or Legend. It has that sword and sorcery type of vibe to it as well.
Yeah, I reckon the problem was it needed to be made back then. There's a lot of things that maybe Gerry Anderson departed from that should have been brought with that. It could have worked in Lavender Castle. I mean, the soundtrack definitely needed a rework. That was very uninspiring. So it's a shame.
I'm glad you brought up the music as well, because it's done by Crispin Merrill, who previously done Space Precinct, and he later did New Captain Scarlet as well. And the problem with Crispin Merrill, with all due respect to him, his music was so forgettable. You can hum so much of Barry Gray's music.
Yeah.
Even Richard Harvey, when he did Terrorhawks, there's so many of his tracks that stand out and quite memorable.
Yeah.
Crispin Merrill, granted, both him and Richard Harvey were in the shadow of Barry Gray. That's a big mountain to face. I'd say Lavender Castle is his best work, but with Space Precinct, Lavender Castle, and New Captain Scarlet, it's the opening credits music that is what I remember. But that's only because you hear it in every episode. But any of his incidental music just doesn't stand out. It's just in the background and ambient music, if anything.
For me, there's nothing really going for it. It's not really bad in terms of like it's rubbish. It's not that. It's more like there's not enough in the show for me to be interested in it.
It's certainly far from the glory days, I'm afraid. He never quite got back to the highs, really, after his time with Lou Grade.
It just felt to me like with Gerry Anderson's earlier work, it was above standards from the average of what he was trying to achieve. He was doing puppet shows, and even, forget puppet shows, entertainment shows, they were above par. I mean, the sort of things happened in Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, that wasn't happening in the live action shows back then. But they hadn't, Gerry Anderson pushed it. With Lavender Castle, it's like it's promising you more than it's giving you. And that feeling is very annoying. So it's a shame because after that, you had New Captain Scarlet and everybody, it was like Anderson was... It wasn't the fact that Anderson was gone, it's like his team was gone. Because Anderson, he always worked with a lot of creative and very hyper-talented people who were pushing the boundaries. And it's like he never got back to the position where he was working with people who understood what he was about and what his shows were about and how to capitalize on that and maybe do something new with it.
There was a lot of conflicting ideas as well, because if I remember right, there was one writer who was trying to really emphasize the religious subtext, and I'm not too sure what Gerry's religious beliefs were, but I think he was against that. I think he wanted to not pigeonhole a certain religion or something like that.
Inclusive. I mean, it was salvageable. It needed a few tweaks. Probably been all right. I mean, my main problem is that as far as pilots go, Gerry Anderson is famous for his very, very impactful pilots, but the pilot wasn't good, and so then that's done.
After talking about the power themes with Danny, I'm now going to showcase a couple of music videos that I obtained during my tape trading days. The first one is a Fireball XL5 song. I don't know who's singing. At the time, I assumed it was Susie and the Banshees, but I don't think it is. Also, forgive the bad picture quality. This is what tape trading was like in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's only going to get worse in the next video. After the XL5 song, there was this unusual Captain Scarlet piece. I have no idea what the music is or who composed it, but I enjoy the otherworldly vibe that it gives. Whether these were official or fan-made videos, I think they're good for what they are. Here we are at the end of Déjà Doom. Thanks to Danny, AJ, Michael, Maria and Emma for returning, and thank you out there for watching. Please give it a like and a share and a subscribe. If you would like to make a donation to the show, please go to Buy Me a Coffee or GoFundMe. The links are in the description. This is Adam Luff, signing out.
Time's running out.